Hey everybody, welcome back. Today I'm taking a look at Spriggan Mark II on the PC Engine CD. This game was released in Japan only in 1992. It was published by Naxat and developed by Compile, the same developer as Blazing Lasers and Musha, as well as a number of other shooters. Interestingly enough, this is actually the only side-scrolling shooter Compile ever developed. It's obviously the sequel to Spriggan, also on the PC Engine, but aside from the name, the two games have almost nothing in common. This is also one of those pricey PC Engine games, and as usual, the trick is figuring out if it's worth what it goes for online. This is definitely the most plot-heavy shoot-'em-up I have ever played. The story takes place in the distant future when humanity has colonized Mars and established a government there. But Mars is still under the control of Earth, which they apparently don't like. So a war for Martian independence breaks out. You play as Greg, a hero's name if I ever heard one. He's an ace mech pilot fighting for the Earth, and he's lucky enough to be chosen to pilot the powerful Spriggan Mark II, which you don't actually start using until the middle of Stage 3. The Martian forces eventually bring the fight to Earth, and it's even revealed that they anticipated that they might have to eventually go to war, so they built a series of super powerful rocket boosters on the dark side of the moon, which they used to launch the moon at the Earth. Brilliant. The story is my only real gripe with this game, not the story itself really, just that there are constant breaks in the action to move the plot along, which gets irritating. When I'm playing a shooter, trying to quickly dodge lots of bullets and obstacles, the last thing I want is a dialogue box to pop up, everything stops, and then get a bit of exposition. This is really a minor gripe though. As far as shooters go, Spriggan Mark II is pretty good. The controls make full use of the limited buttons on the PC Engine controller. You attack with the 2 button and change the direction you're facing with the 1 button, which is cool. I can't think of a whole lot of 16-bit shooters that let you fire in multiple directions. You also have several different weapons that you can cycle through with the select button. Your main gun has infinite ammo, and all of your sub-weapons have limited ammo. Once you start using the Mark II, you can choose which sub-weapons you want to equip before each level, and the further you get into the game, the more weapons you'll have to choose from. You eventually have a lot of options, and the weapons are quite varied. So you get a sword, homing missiles, a laser gun, a shield, and even some helper options that automatically attack enemies. My only complaint with the weapons in this game is that your basic shot only shoots straight forward, so you have to be pretty accurate with it, which can be a tall order sometimes in a game like this. A spread shot would have been nice, or maybe some power-ups scattered around the levels. But really, the controls are spot on and the weapon selection is varied, so I'm not too upset. This is a challenging game, not the hardest shooter I've ever played, mind you, but still pretty tough. You make for a pretty big target, so it can be hard to avoid enemy bullets and other objects sometimes. Luckily, you have a health meter that starts to recharge if you're able to avoid taking damage for a short period. Some of the bosses are pretty elaborate and come equipped with a whole lot of firepower, but if you are able to conserve your ammo, they usually aren't too hard to take down. Some of them even have a time limit to beat them just to make things a little more challenging. Again, the only time I really didn't enjoy the gameplay in Spriggan Mark II is when the action stops for some dialogue. If you have the voiceovers turned on, you can't skip some of the dialogue portions, so you'll probably want to turn the voiceovers off and mash the buttons to get through these parts as quickly as possible. It's really the only blemish on an otherwise really enjoyable game. This is also a game with some great graphics and sound design. The design of the Spriggan and all of the enemies will look very familiar to anyone that's played Musha, or even the first Spriggan. Compile has their own very unique mech design. The stages all look great, they make great use of the PC Engine color palette. They're detailed and they feature some nice multiple scrolling layers which look really good. Also, as is typical of PC Engine CD games, you can expect to see a lot of anime style cutscenes and they all look great. Some are just a little long for my taste. The sound design is also nice. The soundtrack is pretty subdued, but the songs are good and the sound quality is great. There's also voice work all throughout the game, which you might not necessarily care about if you don't speak Japanese, but it's nice that it's at least included. Overall, this is a great example of the kind of great presentation you can find in some of the better games on the system. So, on the whole, I really like this game. It's got a couple of flaws, but it's an enjoyable shoot 'em up with some smooth controls, great graphics, and excellent sound design. However, if you're a PC Engine owner and you want a copy of this game, it'll probably cost you at least $60 on the low end, up to $100 online. And I'm sorry to say, I don't think it's quite worth that, which is unfortunate because it is worth playing. If you can somehow get it for cheap, or maybe just borrow it for a little while from the internet, I fully recommend giving this one a try. It's great. And while you're at it, try any of the other Compile shooters if you haven't already. They're all good.